Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was informed by Canada's spy agency that China was potentially attempting to influence a Toronto riding nomination during the 2019 federal election. But he told a public inquiry that he did not feel those concerns warranted nullifying the result.
The threshold for overturning a democratic event like an official party nomination to find out who would be the candidate for a general election, particularly during an election, general election, must have a fairly high threshold.
So several federal cabinet ministers joined Trudeau in testifying on the issue of foreign election interference, much of it surrounding the 2019 and 2021 elections. CTV News chief political correspondent Vassy Kapelos is joining us this morning to break it all down. I'm always fascinated what you were watching, what stood out to you, Vassy. But let's start here. For a long time now, people have been asking, what did the Prime Minister know and when? We have been waiting for that answer. What did we learn yesterday?
I think we learned a few things more than we had known previously, and I would note largely that's because a lot of the times the Prime Minister was on the receiving end of questions, for example, about the riding that you referenced in the introduction. He would just refer to the inquiry or refer to whatever process was going on to investigate the issue of foreign interference and didn't provide any of those details. So what did stand out for me to me was the conversation around Han Dong. That is the independent MP who used to be a Liberal MP, and it's the nomination race that was sort of the focus of a lot of reporting for a number of months, and the irregularities that took place. And by that means essentially school buses full of students who were allegedly voting for Han Dong at the direction of the PRC. What we learned from the Prime Minister was his campaign manager was informed by CSIS. The two of them met at an airport for 20 to 30 minutes to discuss what had unfolded, and ultimately they determined that the bar to overturn the nomination had not been met. I imagine that will be the subject of much debate going forward, but that's really the first time that the Prime Minister put that level of granularity to the subject.
Trudeau also said that the concerns from the Canadian Security Intelligence Service did not meet, as you said, the threshold for the government to step in and then overturn the result. So what is the threshold? Do we know that? And how did we know it wasn't met?
That's such a great question. And I feel like that will inform the second half of the inquiry, which is focused on figuring out how to go forward with the evidence that has been presented, like what needs to change. Basically, this is different than, for example, what happens during an election, where there's this committee that's been set up that if there's an event about to happen that could threaten the integrity of the election, they can go public with it. But even that bar is up for debate as being too high, because we now know stuff was going on at the riding level that didn't meet the bar and therefore never became public until after the election. So in the case of the nomination race, there is no bar. It was just up to the Prime Minister or the leader of the Liberal Party, being the same person at the time, to kind of make that call. And where I think the debate over that will go from here is around, okay, CSIS evidence, Canada's spy agency evidence, didn't meet the bar. They presented what they knew, and then they didn't feel, the campaign manager and the Prime Minister, that it was conclusive enough to make that sort of decision, that binary choice to overturn the nomination. But like, did you ask for more? Was there a way to prove more of it? There was a little bit of follow-up. The Prime Minister said sort of more after the individual won the nomination. Then it didn't really seem clear. Like, how far did you go to find out if, in fact, people directed by the regime in China were voting for this individual? And so I think that's where the political space remains and the space for debate remains, because the answers weren't super clear on that aspect.
Well, here's something else that's not super clear for me. I'm confused about this narrative of blaming the media, and things that were reported were wrong, and then we couldn't say it because it would threaten public safety. Can you explain where that came from, or what they were trying to get to with that? Because that's not something we've heard before.
Yeah, so this is very specific and very narrow, and I agree it's important to sort of really zero in on not all the reporting around this has been false. The majority, in fact, has not, and that's what's prompted this inquiry. The specific report that the Prime Minister was saying was incorrect and inaccurate came from Global News, and it was about that individual Han Dong, and it's actually once he became an MP. They reported that he met with China's consul on a number of occasions, but on one occasion essentially communicated to him and this is monitored by Canada's space spy agency, that they that he said delay the release of the Michaels, don't let them out because it would anytime soon, because it would advantage the Conservatives. Now that's something that Han Dong has denied. He's also pursued legal means to sort of facilitate that denial and say that those allegations aren't true. The Prime Minister and Brian Clow, one of his senior staffers the day before, basically said, we had in our possession intelligence that showed us that that was not true, that that report was inaccurate, but we were told we basically couldn't share it. We did not feel we could share it, but now we can say we had it and it's not true, but we're not actually going to reveal the contents of that intelligence. So it is a little bit murky, but basically that sums up the position that they presented.
All right, Vashti, that is all the time we have for this morning, but thank you for coming on. We appreciate it.
My pleasure, anytime.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.